Hello everybody, welcome back to the Advanced Vape channel. As you can see, I'm not where I normally film, not using the same camera. I'm on the road, so I'm not with my normal stuff. But today we're going to be talking about the SQUONK GENIUS from CTHULHU. So this isn't an atomizer or a mod. It's kind of an attachment to turn your regular mod into a SQUONK setup. It kind of bridges that gap between a dedicated SQUONK setup and a mod that can't do it at all. For me, what I'm seeing, the most common SQUONK setups are kind of single battery mechanical mod kind of setups, just for space reasons, I would assume. And that kind of limits your builds and what you do with it quite a bit, and I'm not really a big fan of that. So I like having a mod that can SQUONK, that's capable of doing everything that my normal mod can. So this is kind of like a good fit in between there. I don't have a DNA SQUONK setup, but I have DNA mod, so it kind of allows me to do both when I want to. So real quick, in the package, there's not a whole lot, just a little bag with an extra kind of SQUONK sleeve and some O-rings. And here is the actual SQUONK GENIUS. So as you can see, your atomizer fits on top here, and it screws in. It kind of becomes a pass-through between your atomizer and the mod, just to add the SQUONK capability onto it. So I'm not really a big fan of how this looks. It's not particularly pretty on a mod, but as far as functionality goes, it works really well. So I'm going to use our RDA on there. And one thing you want to make sure of that I've noticed, these connections, all of them where it's kind of threaded together at the bottom and the top and the atomizer, they all have to be super tight for it to read the connection. I've gotten check atomizer a few times from it being not quite solid on there. So here's what the whole setup looks like. Like I said, not the prettiest looking setup in the world, but it lets me use my DNA that I already have with a SQUONK setup. So I'm going to go on and refill it using those fill holes. I haven't noticed any resistance change between having it on there and not. Obviously, I'm sure that there is a small resistance change, but functionally, I haven't noticed a difference in reading ohms from the mod. If you saw me show this sleeve off, you'll see that it's not a bottle like there would be on a normal SQUONK setup. It's just kind of a silicone sleeve that sits down in there, and you can squeeze it and put pressure on the liquid in there to be forced up that chimney into the atomizer. Let me see if I can get this so you can see it. Sorry, that's kind of dark. As far as SQUONKing goes, it works really well, as good as any SQUONK setup that I've used. I normally just kind of push it in there, and then as it expands back, it pulls the excess back out of there. And then from there, it's using it as any normal atomizer. So for me, it kind of, like I was saying, it bridges that gap really nicely between a dedicated SQUONK setup and a mod that can't do it at all. So if you kind of just want to try out SQUONKing and see what it's like, or you want a squonk setup, but you don't like the single battery mechanical. You want to be able to do your dual coils or more powerful builds and stuff, but you don't want to buy a DNA squonk. That's kind of where this thing sits for me. I don't really squonk that much, so for me, this is more than enough to be able to use my squonk setups when I want to, and just take it off and use it normally when I don't want to. If you like the single battery squonk mods or whatever, then sticking with that will work fine. This isn't going to replace that whole kind of category of products, but it's a really good in-between point for me. I don't know why, but I felt like when I first saw this that it was going to have problems wicking, and that there would be resistance jumps and all of that stuff, but I really haven't had any issues. It squonks perfectly, just as well as any other squonk that I've used, and at a good price point to be able to try squonking. As far as things that I don't like about it, like I said, I'm not really a big fan of how it looks. It's not enough to stop me from using it. But, I mean, it's okay. I guess it would look good if you had a 24mm silver mechanical mod, but that sort of crosses into the territory if you would be using a squonk mechanical mod anyway. So, not the prettiest looking thing, and the only other real downside is, like I mentioned, you have to have these connections really tight for it to read the atomizer. It seems to have issues if they're not super solid on there. And that can kind of get the atomizer stuck on there if you have it screwed down really tight. There's been a few times where that's happened to me, and I end up unscrewing it from here to refill it instead of taking the atomizer off, because it's easier to unscrew it like that than it is to get the atomizer off, because it's really firmly on there. On the whole, I like it. I think it's a cool little adapter thing to use if you want to try out squonking. It holds a decent amount of liquid, so I haven't really had to refill it too often, which is good because the refill can kind of be difficult, like I mentioned. So I think that'll bring us to the end of this real short video about the Squonk Genius from CTHULHU Mod. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below or send me an email. And for our next video, we'll be back to where we normally film it. Thanks.